Bellator was speaking to Nate Diaz. That was a statement that was made. Well, Bellator then came out and clarified that a little bit, just to say, Nate's got managers and we have people, it's an industry and we're going back and forth, but he's in an exclusive negotiated period. Now, just set that aside, but that was a really interesting detail because that's exactly the way that most contracts are. These are usually boilerplate contracts. You change a word here or there, you put a date, you put a new guy's name. Everybody's basically got the same deal, and it's very relevant. So Nate's contract situation with the UFC has been very public for a meaningful period of time. So he's done, but he now is in a exclusive negotiation period, which generally is 3 months. Now, the reason that matters, and the reason I'm so glad that we got clarity on that, is because it pushes you right back to Francis Ngannou. And the most clarity that I have ever been given, that I witnessed and that I retained, was at a post-fight press conference when Kevin Iole made a statement to Francis. It was a statement in the form of a question when he said, to our understanding, your contract with the UFC expires in December. Is that right? And Francis said, yeah. Now, it's always been discussed since that point that on December 11th, that date in December, that he's just free and clear. Off to box Tyson, off you go, whatever you want to do. You're free and clear. But it does matter if you have the exclusive negotiation period. And that's just never been talked about with Francis. It was never talked about with Nate. And I was even thinking, man, these guys got something else in their deal. So I appreciate this has been clarified. Now, on the heels of that, Francis is coming out. Francis said, I want to fight Jon Jones. And he told the truth. He said how great Jon did, and he's in the division, and that's a great big payday for me. And I'm ready to go make some money. Now, I love those things. These are all really wonderful things. And we always take Francis at his word. Whatever Francis says, that's the direction that we go in. But he's been so hot and heavy, and I'm not coming back, and I'm going to box Tyson, and we're going to make some rules up. Or even if I don't box Tyson, I still have to have this clause in my contract. It was one of these things that we really didn't know. Now, they can go together, right? Francis, maybe if he elaborates on this thought, I want to fight Jon Jones under a new contract, that gives me a carve out for boxing. They can all go together. But they did it in this particular statement, and I'm just sharing it with you. Somebody wants to fight Jon Jones. Now, I don't love the timing of it. That's the fight to make, by the way. I would never attempt to correct that fight. That would be the most colossal match. I understand those things. It's important, if possible, that we preserve the idea when Jon goes in there with Francis that Jon is going to lose. That is what this whole thing is predicated on. This isn't about let's go watch Jon take 2 years, go up a weight class, and go collect some more hardware and prove that he was just the best. It's not. Not even a little bit of the pie. Zero of that. It's about Jon being in a circumstance that we believe to be insurmountable, which is multiple years off, changing divisions, kicked out of his gym. Where is he preparing? Going to take on a much larger man. And size matters. We've convinced ourselves of that. Muhammad Ali was 198 pounds in his prime. Mike Tyson was 220 pounds. It's been proven to us that the size gimmick isn't as true as we believed that it was. But it's still a real phenomenon. It really is something that you can sink your teeth into the numbers. You bring up those numbers, it's this beautiful thing for Jon Jones. What's he got, that 83-inch reach or just something silly, but it's the longest reach in the entire sport. Longest reach in the history of the sport, but that matters. That pops off the page. You see that. Francis Ngannou, they say he weighs 260. That's what he says. He's a big man. The right way. I think he's cutting to get down to 265. I think he's getting to the ring about 278, 280. This is what I think. This is what my eyes tell me. But that's a big deal, and Jon has helped to this story. Nobody's been more helpful than Jon. Jon took 2 years off, and what are we going on 3? I've lost track. We are 2 or 3 years that Jon has removed himself saying, I must gain weight. I cannot beat these guys if I don't have X amount of size. Jon has really done a good job of reinforcing our belief that size matters. Now, I don't love that Francis is out with an injury. I mean, the story is damn near perfect. I realize that I'm nitpicking, but I do want to nitpick it because we have a round robin. We have a few ways that we can do this Stipe Jones-Francis business. But I don't know of a way that has ever been suggested for us that gets Francis in there with Jones in a scenario where Francis is not out. All I'm proposing is that Francis has been hurt with a leg injury. Francis come back, he gets one fight. Now when he fights Jon, he hasn't been out. That's not part of the story, but I don't see a scenario with this very clear three-way dance they got going. It appears that it's either going to be Jon Jones versus Francis, which Michael Bisping was the first to suggest, I must say, or it's going to be Stipe versus Jones. Winner feeds into Francis. So either way, I don't know that I can get my side of it corrected, which I don't want that part of the story. Well, Francis was laid off and he's been out for a period of time. If Francis was out for a year, Jon Jones was out for 3. Like, I'm trying to get ahead of this thing because I like where Francis is at. Hey, guys, we have an obligation to support Francis. As an MMA community, we've been upset with Francis because the heavyweight champion, and he's not signed. It doesn't say he's going to come back to the promotion. As a matter of fact, last time we see him in a ring, it's in a boxing ring. He says he wants to go and make up a sport and do it with Tyson. We don't have to back him on that. Like, we aren't unloyal people, and we aren't bad guys. We aren't not Francis's friends. If he tries to change the deal, we have the right to change our response. We don't have to follow Roy Jones Jr. when he went into the world of rap. We don't have to follow The Rock when he wants people to start calling him Dwayne. We will make the rule. You will do what we want. We are still the consumer. Now, some of you loved it and you were ready to go with him. I'm just sharing, if you didn't, if you weren't on board for this whole let's carve out, let's go make up some rules, let's go fight Tyson Fury somewhere in England. Like, if you weren't on board with that, you're not wrong. You weren't the disloyal fit. This is what you want Francis to do. But if Francis is talking about he wants to come back, he wants to fight Jon Jones, hey, let's get behind him. And you can't get behind Francis coming off a knee injury. Don't forget that. Keep hearing about all this contract stuff. Francis is testing something. That's okay. Because he's not delaying his own career. He's not holding up that division. Francis has not gotten that belt and gone and hidden. He's got a knee injury. He's trying to fix it. It's a very important part of the story. And I feel as though once this all gets worked out, or moreover, if it never does, that people are going to try to rewrite history and say that Francis held up a division. It's not what he did. He wasn't able to compete. He wasn't able to go into training camp. He wasn't going to fight anybody. Interim the thing, strip me from the thing, whatever you want to do with it, I can't go in there and defend it. That's true at the same time as the contract discussions are true. So I think we've got majorly good news here with Francis. And he's right. Jon's the fight to make. That's the biggest fight. He wants a great big payday. That's the great big payday. You get a calculator out and you start running the numbers. I'm not sure that whatever that is with Tyson is, I don't really know how that works. I remember Nate Diaz went on Ariel's show. He said he turned out a fight with Conor McGregor. That wasn't just talk. He did. Nate's contract, the way it works in Chael's estimations, which are pretty good, but they're not perfect, was about $12 million to fight Conor. And I could be on the high side. We need a lot of people to come to the table, but you're looking at about $12 million. Versus $2 million to fight Chimaev. What turned out to be Tony. And then you go on a hiatus, we believe, to go and do something in boxing. I'm just not sure if you get the calculator out that at the end of this period, it is more money. I'm not sure. I think Francis could do about 18 million, do 15 million to fight Tyson. I do think that. But if you pass up 4 fights to get there, do you guys hear what I'm saying? Now, that's to each his own. One guy may go, I don't want to go 4 times for 15 million. If I can go 1 time for 15 million, okay, you could do that too. That's not the argument I'm making. I'm talking about you get a calculator out and just tell me the number. By X date, right? By January 1st of 2024, what were your earnings in this period? Maybe you had to work more to get it. I'm just talking about that final number. I'm not convinced that they're so big and beautiful in boxing. And I do think it's a very helpful detail. And we do owe Bellator a thank you for this, for coming out and clarifying and saying that Nate has this exclusive period. Sometimes when you're riding on principle, I'm exhausting this contract. I can't see anything. I can't see and I can't hear anything. I'm exhausting this contract. I'm full steam. It's the only thing that I care about. Sometimes once that's done and you got your way, You go, okay, I've exhausted the contract. I'm free. Well, you're actually more susceptible at that point to start hearing and to start seeing some of these other things. You know, Nate Diaz was very cool to the promotion. He thanked everybody when he left. He did not bring out a new name or a new business and start plugging them and telling you to go to their websites and buying their t-shirts and light your UFC stuff on fire. Man, it was the furthest thing from that. As a matter of fact, he said, I'm going to come back to the UFC. So what's the difference? What's the difference if you're going to come back in 3 years, or what's the difference if you come back in 3 months? You come back in 3 years and see what's out there with if your Nate Diaz is going to be something pretty special. Or you come back in 3 months, you take on Conor McGregor, the biggest fight the sport can make. I just think that there's a discussion that is likely to be heard and seen differently now that Nate got what he wanted, which is the exhaustion of the contract. There's a reason that Dana puts the 3 months, the exclusive in. Dana's not done talking to Nate. Dana's not done talking to Francis. But the part that might surprise you guys is Nate and Francis aren't done listening to Dana.